call. This is one of our national calls, which we hold monthly, and hope you can come every time, because we not only do we learn something, but we have a little fun while we're doing so. And tonight, we're really excited to kick off our latest campaign, where this is an election year, and we are all about holding candidates and elected officials accountable. So we're going to go over our latest project with you, and then anybody will be able to answer questions or ask questions, and we'll be able to answer them and provide support as you go through this process and take on this project. It's not terribly hard. Likely as not, you don't have more than a couple of people that you need to engage, but it's a really important project. So Margot, the name of the project is Candidates Pledge Climate Action, and that's what we're going to be asking candidates to do, to pledge climate action. And Margot is going to talk a little bit about our goals for this project, and then we will explain it in more detail and hear about the pilot, because we've already piloted it and it's very successful. So thank you, Margot.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, it's really exciting. This is the second time that we have done a candidates climate pledge, and we're rolling it out in a much bigger, more cohesive way than in the past. So I expect it's going to be really successful. And of course, the main goal for this project is to make climate change part of the national conversation this election year, so that candidates know that climate change matters to the people who are going to vote. So this campaign is also going to help us to determine which candidates already care about climate change and want to take action, and which ones we're going to need to educate, especially if they get elected. And so, and for us to be able to publicize those candidates who do sign the climate pledge, so that we can use that to influence other candidates to try to get on board, and also so that before someone goes to vote, if that matters to them, they can check our website and see whether which of their candidates have signed the climate pledge. And another goal really of this project is to engage our members in an opportunity to take action where they live, where you live. And you might do that by visiting campaign offices to get the pledge, contacting candidates in other ways, showing up for town hall meetings and candidate forums, and being able to engage the staff and candidates in conversations about climate change and why it's so important to you, and really to make the voice of the elder really strong and visible this election season. Anything else, Jen or Jerry, that you want to add, or Leslie, that you want to add to that?
I don't have anything specific to add. Do you want me to go ahead and show resources, Margot?
Well, do we want to go through the website? And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's show what the tools are that what you're going to be having available to you to use as you do this.
Great. Okay, I will share my screen. Okay, you should be able to see my screen. This is the Elders Climate Action website, and when you come to our website, you can get to the Candidates Pledge Climate Action project two different ways. The first way would be through the navigation toolbar, and it's under Take Action with ECA, Candidates Pledge Climate Action. So that is one way you can get there. The other way you can get there is you can scroll down and you'll find it right here also with the Learn More link. And if you click on Learn More, you will get to that page. This page is intended to sort of help guide you through participating in the project, but here you can see there's a snippet of the climate pledge. So this is the actual pledge that we are asking members of Congress and candidates for office to sign. We have a different version, a different version of it for members of Congress, but this is the one that we're asking candidates for office to sign, which is the project that we're working on currently. To get access to this document, to this pledge to take to your candidate or to send to your candidate, you can download a PDF right here. This is what the PDF looks like. And if you click this button, you will be able to download by selecting the computer right here, this pledge. And so here is where you can fill in your name, your email address, so that they know that you're their constituent or how to contact you. But then also, we know who who solicited this signature, and then you can have them sign and fill in the pledge.
And Jen, maybe we should read that pledge so that everybody really hears how what we're asking clearly.
Sure. Would you like to read it, Margot?
Sure. So I, whatever my name is, member of the United States Congress or candidate for that office, recognize that climate change poses a threat to the health of our citizens, our economic growth, our reputation as a world leader, and our national security. I will engage with my fellow members of Congress to support climate legislation and regulatory policies to avoid the potentially devastating social, economic, and national security impacts of climate change. I recognize that such legislation can support economic growth by stimulating technological innovation, development of a more resilient infrastructure, and increasing domestic employment. So we really lay out in that pledge why, what the threats are, some of the important threats from climate change, and what we're asking of them and to support, and also letting them know how it's beneficial to our country to address that.
To support that ask, we have included this short sort of letter that could go with the ask, or you could replace this letter in asking personally at a town hall meeting or a candidate forum. Once you have that pledge and that pledge is signed, what do you do with it? Well, you come back to our website and you click on either upload pledge federal or upload pledge state. So you can solicit House and Senate candidates federally, and you can also solicit signatures from state and local offices. So we're seeing responses come in from all levels of state and local office. The more people we can get to commit to being climate change advocates and taking action on climate change, the better. So we really, if we can access anybody that's an elected official or a candidate running for an elected office. You will click.
Question.
Oh, sure.
Let's say, I went and I got someone to sign that in hard copy. How do I upload it on my computer? How can I send it to you? That's
what I'm going to show you right now.
Okay.
So once you have that signed pledge, you're going to come here and you're going to click either on sign pledge federal or sign pledge state. We're going to click on federal. You're going to fill out this information, your name, email, the candidate's name, the office that they're running for, and the state and congressional districts. And then you're going to attach the file right here. You're going to say add file, select the file from your computer, and then you would select the file off of your computer's hard drive.
But you would first have needed to scan that signed pledge onto your computer.
Or you don't necessarily need to scan it if you don't have a scanner, because many of us don't have a scanner, but many of us do have a cell phone. You can just take a picture of the pledge with your cell phone, and then you can upload that picture to this form. And if you need help with that, I can help you, or you can contact info and we can help provide a little bit more instruction. But you should be able to take a picture either with your cell phone or scan it with your home scanner, or any means of taking a paper document and getting it into a digital version. You can attach either a PDF or a JPEG. So PDF is typically used for print materials. JPEG is typically an image file. You can add either one of those. So you'll click add file, you'll upload your signed pledge, and then you'll submit. And that is the process. Once you do that, that information is going to show up on our website, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But I want to show you a couple other things first. So if you're having some trouble getting started on this project, and maybe you feel a little overwhelmed about talking to people, or maybe you feel overwhelmed about approaching a candidate, we've created a couple of different PDF guides to help you. So the first one is the Getting Started guide, this first one here in the green box. And if I click this, this is getting started. What can you do? How do you do it? What's the process involved? And we just try to keep it one page and really short and simple for you. If you need some talking points about climate change, you're not sure you know enough about climate change, you might want to refer to our talking points for Candidates Pledge Climate Action meetings. And so this is breaking it down into good little sound bites for things of health of our citizens, economic growth, our reputation as a world leader, national security. Here's some quotes from the Climate Solutions Caucus members. So some tools for your tool bag here when you go to talk to other people.
And Jen, if I could just briefly interrupt, I want to stress that this is a nonpartisan, bipartisan effort. So if you're registered with a particular party, we don't want you to only go to the candidate from your party, but to ask all candidates for that office. You may not get responses from all of them, but we want you to ask all of them.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're looking at a specific office, say you're looking at House candidates, make sure you're asking all of the candidates that are running for that same office. If you ask the Democrat, ask the Republican, ask the Independent, and like Margot said, there's a high probability that you might not get a response from some of the candidates, and that's fine, but we need to ask them. They need to have the option to not respond to us. If you have some concerns about talking climate with other people, we have a section on our website which is sort of dedicated to that. There's a few handouts here about talking to elected officials. There's this really great video on why our message isn't getting through from Yale Climate Connections. But utilize the resources that we have here on our website. So we've linked that back here to our project page. When you get a response from a candidate, make sure you're thanking that candidate. And so we've given you some options to thank. So one option is you can right click on this image and save this image save this image to downloads, or save this image to your desktop. And then you could share it on social media, or you could put it in an email. You can also cut and paste this information. So if you just use Control-C, Control-V, or Command-C, Command-V, and cut and paste this information right out of our page, you could put it into a social media post. Here's links to social media right here at the bottom of the page. Or you could cut and paste text to go into an email. Or you can write your own text. You don't have to use our text at all. But it's really important that we do stop and appreciate and thank candidates that are signing our pledges. And we will be trying to keep on top of acknowledging those people on our social media feeds on Facebook and Twitter as well. Hazel, do you want to talk a little bit about, and I need to unmute you, or you can, Hazel, will you unmute yourself?
Myself.
Okay, and you can talk a little bit about maybe what Arizona has been doing to launch this project, and we can see here some of the preliminary results from signatures received from the Arizona kickoff.
Arizona kicked kicked off a pilot about mid-January, I think, just to kind of see how things would work and how to use the climate pledge. We have had pretty amazing results. We have, I think it's 8 or 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 congressional district candidates that have signed the pledge from 5 of our legislative districts. And we have, I think, 17 state elected officials that have signed the pledge. We've lost a little steam the last 3 or 4 weeks because I had just declared myself a candidate for the Arizona House of Representatives. So we've kind of stepped back a little bit. But I'm really seeing when I'm out in groups that it's really working. I was at a large meeting today of Democratic, mostly women, in the Scottsdale area, and they actually represent a number of districts. And one of our candidates, Talia Francis, for Congressional District 9, in her talk, one of her first things that she said was she was proud to have signed the climate pledge for Elders Climate Action. And she talked about some of the points in our climate pledge, and I think that's incredibly important. Her opponent, Greg Stanton, is a big climate person that has been sending out emails on climate change pretty regularly lately. So I think that's been, I just keep hearing it at meetings. What I did when I first started getting the pledges signed is I just started to go to town hall meetings and legislative district meetings and other places, candidate forums and those type of things where people were gathering. And I probably had my greatest results there. I printed out a copy of the pledge. I filled in the information on the candidate. And basically during the event, if there was opportunities to ask questions, I would ask the question on climate. So first thing I got, and I usually use much of the wording of the climate pledge in my question, that I'm a grandmother. I'm really concerned about, climate change and its impacts on our health and our national security, our economy, etc. And get their responses. When you get the responses, then it's really an easy thing to take that pledge up there and say, you said, will you sign? So it makes it really, really easy to approach people. And I have not had anybody that has been approached at one of those forums that has directly turned me down face to face. I have talked with some people when I didn't have it with me, and I find it isn't as powerful. They'll say they're going to go sign, and then they forget and they don't do it. The key, I think, is keeping at people. We are having better luck in getting responses on the Democratic side, but we definitely work on the Republican side as well. Our goal is in Arizona to have someone from every one of our legislative districts that has signed, or several that have signed. We have a real vibrant primary coming up on August 28th. And so in many of the districts, we have 4 or 5 Democrats and 4 or 5 Republicans running, and in some cases even more. We also have a special election that's coming up in April. So we have reached out to all of the candidates, both in the primary and the special election. And the primary is over. Actually, Dr. Haral Tipanani is the nominee. And Brianna Westbrook has moved to be a candidate in a neighboring legislative district, and Jean Scher was also one of those people. Interestingly, I've heard several times on the campaign trail, including on a couple televised, Harrell mentioning that climate and climate issues. And I even heard her say that she signed a climate pledge for Elders Climate Action. So it's a great way to get our name out there. Another creative way to get the pledge signed is to actually make an appointment with that candidate or with their campaign team, or if it's an already elected official, with that elected official on their staff, and take it with you and ask them right there. And not all of them are going to assign, but it's a great opportunity to get it out, and then we know who's to support and don't give up. Keep working on them every single day. Not every single day, but keep. If you get a no the first time, go back a month later, or go back a couple months later, or have somebody else contact. The more people that contact the candidates and elected officials, the more apt we are to get a number of signed pledges. I guess that's kind of an overview. The one thing that a number of the pledges, I have talked to the candidates or their campaign staff and gave them the option when I wasn't seeing them in person, or when we weren't seeing them in person. We gave them the option to sign directly online, and I've had several that have done that. So, just be sure and tell them that they can download, that they need to make sure that they download either the federal, if they're running for federal office, or the state if they're running a state office. It's very important that they make sure that they add the office that they are running for, and that they should print the form out, fill it out, scan it to a PDF or a JPEG, and then upload it right on the site. They don't have to get it back to us. If you do that, keep checking back and see if they've signed. If they haven't, give them another call and say, hey, you said you were going to sign, but I haven't seen it yet. Or and then we also want to make sure that if they do sign, that we do a follow-up thank you. That thank you is a really important piece of it. Also, if you know that somebody has signed a climate pledge, and then you see them come out and speak on climate issues, I think it carries a huge amount of weight to write an email or just a short note and send it to them and thank them for thinking about your grandchildren and future generations in their policies, and that you heard it and you really appreciate it. I heard Dr. Harrell Tipernani talking about it a couple days ago. So I need to write her a thank you note and just say, hey, thanks. I really appreciate it. I told her in person, but I need to follow up with something, either an email or a note. Is there any?
I just want to interject and say, don't forget to thank them on social media also, because that gives a public face to that recognition and to the fact that they've signed it, and that lets other people know that they've taken action, that they are willing to act on climate. And so that's a good way to help them spread the word also.
And if you're not on social media, you can write a letter to your local or neighborhood newspaper. And of course, we're very careful. We are not endorsing any candidates. We're very clear that we do not endorse candidates, but we can publicly thank them for signing the letter. One other thing I want to add, because it came up, someone in California experienced this, and that is that if you're reaching out to someone who is currently a member of Congress and is running for re-election, that once they are in they file their papers and they're an official candidate for re-election, then it's not their congressional office staff who can work with you on a candidate's pledge. It would be their campaign office that you would need to approach, not their congressional or Senate office. So, and as Hazel said, checking to see whether someone has signed yet or not by going to the website and looking at the spreadsheet of who is signed will help you know how persistent you need to be, and that you're developing a relationship with that candidate or perhaps soon to be elected official, so that once they're in office, then you can say, oh, you signed the pledge and now we want to see, we haven't seen any action on your part. Or I'd love to set up a time to meet with you when you're back in the district, or I'm going to be in DC for an event. And so you're building, it's a step towards building a relationship with an elected official. And we know that those relationships mean a lot. They carry a lot of weight, and our elected officials vote based on what they think matters to their voters.
And can I interject here? Because for those of you on this call who may think, well, Elders Climate Action, we're going out to get somebody to sign some pledge. It's going to go up on our website. What's the big difference? Well, the big difference is that climate change has not been part of the national discussion in elections. We are partnering with the Environmental Voter Project, which, by looking at the statistics of past voting, finds that a large majority of people who are environmentalists, who would be thinking about climate change or environmental integrity, don't go to the polls, because climate and the environment aren't part of what the candidates are talking about. They're talking about jobs, they're talking about immigration, they're talking about all kinds of important things, by all means, but they're not talking about climate change. And so ECA is involved here in a pincer effort. One effort, the candidates' climate pledge, is to get that out there as part of the discourse of candidates, of making them take positions, of being able to point and say, this person has agreed to take action or not. And the other side of it is our voter pledge of getting out there and trying to get more and more people to go to the polls, because, we're not asking them, we're not, scrutinizing them to say, are you an environmental voter? And if so, please go to the polls, otherwise stay away. It's just that we know that the more people who go to the polls, the more people who go will be voting with things like climate change and environmental degradation in mind. So this is getting information out into a national discourse, which otherwise, or state and local discourse, which otherwise seems to not come out at all. So it's very, very important for our voters to be able to know this.
And I want to add that many of us may already live in districts where the incumbent who's running for re-election is an ardent environmentalist, is very concerned about climate change, speaks up about that, takes action about that all the time. So while we want to get their pledge, we really want to reach out to those districts where it's not so clear. And so whether you have a connection to another district because you used to live there, or you have family or friends living in some of those crucial districts, please encourage others to get involved as well. We really want to get as many candidates and districts and states involved in this as possible.
Two things I would like to add. One is, once you get the signed pledge from that candidate, I really encourage you to continue in your congressional or legislative districts, or your city councils or county board of supervisors or wherever, to attend forums and debates and campaign and continue to ask questions, so it goes in front of the candidates, because this helps that rise to the top of the the pack as far as issues. The other thing that I have found as from running as a candidate, I'm running with my major issue is climate change and environmental issues. And what I'm finding is what we heard on the last call from Nathan about voters' viewpoints, whereas when on surveys, climate change isn't a high priority. What I'm finding when I'm knocking on doors and talking with people, I'm finding they deeply care about it, and they're very, very concerned about it. Especially in Arizona, I think people are concerned about, our water issues, especially with no snow in the mountains. They're really concerned about how hot it's getting. They're concerned about air quality, all kinds of issues along that line. And we just need to start talking about it. I think one of the problems we've made for many, many years with climate change is we didn't think people wanted to hear it, so we didn't talk about it. And we allowed the climate deniers to get power and continue to hold power in our elected officials. And when we start talking about it with everybody and helping them understand that are we going to have an Arizona that's livable in the future, or are we going to be, having to find other places to live? Those are kind of things that people care about. In Florida, are we going to be flooded most of the year, or will we be able to continue to enjoy our beach communities? I really encourage people just to talk about it and let people know that this is a priority for you. You're concerned about your grandchildren, and you want to make sure that they have a future that we can be proud of.
Two more things I want to add. One is I just wanted to point out that we do have one signature from California. So I think that was thanks to Marilyn Price. But California has, it's just, the project is really, this is the kickoff of the project. So we're just starting to introduce the project out there. So Arizona has been the main focus. The Arizona chapter has taken on the lead of sort of kicking off the project and trying it out, seeing sort of success and failures, and helping us modify the process. But now some of the Northern California chapter members have started to jump in and collect signatures also. So that's really great. And I just want to reiterate that when you upload that signature here, that information will show up down here, and it will show up in real time. So it should show up shortly after you upload it. You might have to refresh your browser. You might need to clear your cache if it's not showing up there, or try shutting down your browser and reopening it and look again. But it should show up pretty immediately when you upload. So know that when we say check back here, if you're checking back here, you're seeing signatures of anybody we have received. There isn't anybody waiting in the mailbox or waiting in someone's email inbox somewhere to be uploaded. It's all been uploaded in live time. So it's a great way to know if your candidates in your area have in fact signed, so that you can go back and thank them, or to see who has signed, who hasn't signed, so you can help outreach to those candidates. One thing I think I think would be really helpful in this process is finding a small group of people in your community that would be willing to take on, part of it. So maybe you're taking the list of candidates, and one of you is contacting all the Democrats and one is contacting all the Republicans, or whatever. But find a way to divide and conquer the process in your own community, and that way you can bring that information back to everybody else in this way.
And Jen, I want to build on that a little bit, because I know at the beginning of our Getting Started guide, it says form a small team. And I think it's essential for a number of reasons. And I think back to the last time we did a pledge, and from some people who were working on it in Arizona. If you're doing it by yourself and you're not getting any response, it's easy to give up and get discouraged and drop the ball. And so having other people where you can boost each other up and encourage each other, or you get tired of going after a candidate who's not responding, somebody else says, let me try, I'll go visit their office, I live nearer to it or something. So having a team really helps you to persist in doing this, that you don't have to do it all by yourself. And in fact, it's better if you don't.
I'd like to also add something, that what this is going to demonstrate to legislators, especially those that are not going to sign the pledge, but you're sending them a message that elders care about climate change and elders vote. And that's a very, very strong message to send. So, you know, it's another piece to this pie that you need to consider. Questions?
Oh, Kurt's waving his hand, Jen.
He is unmuted.
No, he's still muted.
Oh, I just unmuted.
Oh, Kurt, maybe you're muted on your own computer.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that latter point is the thing that's most important to me. I mean, I think this is really important. I haven't participated with y'all before, so I don't know exactly, you know, where your intention is and everything. I mean, I see very clearly that what we're talking about here is our concern about climate and trying to move these electeds in that direction. But it seems to me that we're coming at this because we're elders, and I guess I was looking for more emphasis on the fact that who we're bringing to the table right now, why we're sitting in your office right now, is not just because we're concerned about this, but because we represent a vast number of people of our age bracket who are damn concerned about this. And if you want to get reelected, or if you want to get elected, you better pay attention to us. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just about this. Yeah. Because, you know, if you're intelligent at all, you know that this is important. But I mean, you know, I necessarily wouldn't say that. It depends on who they are, because some Republicans I don't consider to be very intelligent. But anyway, so that's my concern here, is that we're really making sure that they see that we are a voting bloc. Mm-hmm. Right. So.
Right. I think that's why too, a small team working together is a little more powerful. When you go in, you're representing Elders Climate Action, you're representing over 80 million elders who vote. You know, the millennials are going to take over the numbers, but they don't vote in the numbers in the same percentage that we vote. We're there and we care. And, you know, the worst consequences of climate change hopefully will be way beyond when we're around, but we're fighting for this. So you're right. You know, we really need to emphasize that it's the voice of elders.
Yes, and you know, when we visited congressional offices last year when we were in DC for an Elders Climate Action Day, it was clear in every office we went to that showing up as elders who were concerned about something that was going to affect the young people working in the office, the grandchildren or children of the elected person, not us. It will affect our grandchildren or great nieces and nephews, that we're not in it for ourselves. We're in it out of our concern and love for young people. And that carries a strong moral message, I think, and heartfelt. They sensed how heartfelt our presence was. And so I think it is really important when you do this to do it at standing as an elder. Thank you, Kurt.
Yep.
One more thing. This march, the marches last weekend with the kids were voices crying out on the issue of gun violence. But many of those same kids are deeply. I've had a bunch of conversations, and they're deeply concerned about the whole world that they're getting. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, if you want your voice to be heard, maybe reach out into your community to some of those leaders of that youth voice, those high school kids, and take some of those high school kids with you to the meetings. That's powerful. I mean, it's really a powerful group right now. They are on fire. They are volunteering for campaigns. They're going to walk and knock on doors. And the more we can, you know, find ways that not to reduce the importance of reducing violence in our schools and having our kids have safe schools, but have them understand how their future is on the line from several different directions. I think that could be a very good way that we can expand our impact on the discussions during this election.
I have a question. If you don't know what your state district is or your congressional district, I mean, if you just don't know, are there resources you can reach out to find those things out?
Yes, there are. You could actually go to there's a website where you just type in your address. It'll give you your congressional district and your state districts and so forth.
And I believe the link is on our
website.
on our Getting Started guide, I think.
Well, in the Getting Started guide, we mentioned Ballotpedia.
Oh, yes.
And also on our website, when you brought up, I think, the resources page, there was a link, find your congressional representative.
Right, yes. That's in the Talking Climate with Others section.
And Ballotpedia keeps pretty close tabs on who's running, but then also you can track, like in Arizona, it's Arizona Secretary of State's office that manages our elections. I think it is in most states. And on that website, it has all the candidates that are running as well. So those are two resources for finding who the candidates are that have actually filed their papers.
Yeah, and Ballotpedia gives you the link to the campaign office for people who are incumbents.
Yeah,
correct.
And it also gives you.
We have David with his hand up.
Emails.
If I could just jump in here on the comment made about the young people that I think Hazel was referring to. This is a little bit of an aside, but with respect to our meeting, our gathering at the end of June, I've suggested that we begin to think about the possibility of at least a session or a conversation on the side titled Safe Planet, Safe Schools, Safe Planet. I mean, what kids want are safe schools, but we know they also want a safe planet. And I think we can harness the energy of young people, whether they're our own grandchildren, whether they are children of grandchildren of our neighbors or members of our church community or something like that. I think we can get some energy into our activities by capitalizing on what's going on with the younger generation.
Yep.
While I've got the floor here, I'd also like to give a shout out to my neighbor, Lavona, who I see is on this call. She was with me at a meeting earlier a year ago where we thought about trying to start a Northern Virginia group. So I'm delighted to see you on this call, Lavona.
Hi, David. Thanks.
Okay. I hope that we can see you in person as well. I'd like to ask the question of everybody on this call. Have any of you been lobbying as long as I have, which is 8 years? Ever since I retired, I've been lobbying. Has anybody lobbied as much as 8 years?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Church saying, waving yes. Yeah.
okay. Well, here's a concern I have, and it might be, Lavona might be able to help me with this. It might be specific to those of us who live in Virginia. One of the, and I can't remember whose offices it was, but one of the offices I went to about signing a pledge, the staff in the office were very clear with me that their boss, their member of Congress, doesn't sign any pledges. It's a policy of the office not to sign pledges. And I wonder if you've encountered that in any of your efforts, and you have. I see some head shaking. What I'm sensitive to when it comes to signing pledges is these folks who are our elected representatives are trying desperately to represent as best they can the views of a broad group of people. And it's very complicated here in Northern Virginia. And I know that in particular because, not in Northern Virginia, but in Virginia particularly, is because one of our senators, Tim Kaine, is at heart a peacenik. But he voted for an increase in the Pentagon budget. He voted for this last budget. If you were to have asked him, because you're a passionate peace person, never to vote for an increase in the budget of the Pentagon, in his heart, as a pacifist and a person who served in Honduras before he moved on into professional life, he would have to say, no, I can't sign that pledge. And the reason he wouldn't be able to sign that pledge is because as a senator representing everybody in Virginia, where there's a lot of money from the Defense Department, he can't maintain himself in office if he signs a pledge like that. So as much as we would love to have all of our people sign pledges, there are some who just have a standing policy in their offices that they won't sign pledges, and the reason is because it gets that complicated.
I think though, David, or I wonder whether even if someone will not sign a pledge, you might be able to begin a relationship with that elected official and say, I would, you know, do you have an environmental aide I can meet with? I'd love to meet with your aide and to get to hear more about, you know, your stand on these kinds of issues. I'd love to share with you why it's important to me. I understand you can't sign a pledge, but I want to have a conversation. I want to begin to have conversations with you so that you understand how important it is, and that the more voters in that person's district who we can get to also speak up and engage with them, the more they're going to know that it matters to their constituents. And even if they don't sign a pledge, as long as they start to take action, that's what's most important.
No, I do understand that, but as a person who's trying to represent myself as a strong supporter of Elders Climate Action, here's the main thing that I'm sensitive to, and I don't know the answer to it, and maybe my fears are unfounded. But I don't want any of my members of Congress to see ECA as a bullying organization. In other words, if we try to shame people who refuse to sign the pledge, I mean, I don't know.
There's no way we shame anyone. Their names will not show up on our website saying that they did not sign a pledge.
The only people we show is who signs the pledge, and we're only acknowledging people who sign the pledge. We're not pointing or calling out people who don't. That wouldn't work. And
if they have people running against them who sign the pledge and who, like in Arizona, who start in their speeches when they're out there saying, I signed this pledge because this is important to me, and the incumbent starts to get concerned that all the people running against her or him are signing it, then they might say, oh, I have to think about what I'm going to do. But we would never shame anyone, just like we will never endorse anyone.
And
I think it's really important.
Simply because they won't sign a pledge does not mean that they can't take climate action or take a stand on climate change. They have a responsibility.
I understand that part. No, I understand that part completely. I just want us to be sensitive to the fact that there may be members of Congress who are our allies when it comes to their passion and their willingness to support legislation, or at least be a part of the conversation around legislation that has to do with climate change. Just to be sensitive to the fact that this is a very complicated milieu that they're working in, and that for good reasons they can be on our side but still can't sign that pledge. And I just hope we don't structure our campaign in a way that would be perceived as bullying.
So I want to stress to everyone on this call that if someone says, we have an official policy, we do not ever sign pledges, that you do not bully them, you do not harass them, you do not keep going after them. You can try to develop a relationship with them and get to know them and understand their perspective of what's important to them, and let them know about what's important to you. But of course, no, we are not bullies.
Okay.
Right, and you can ask questions in a candidate forum or somewhere else about, what are your views on climate change? That's not taking a pledge, but if they care to answer, they answer, and if they don't care to answer, they don't answer. The point is getting it part of the public discourse.
Right.
The pledge is just a mechanism for getting it into the public eye and part of the discourse.
And one other thing along that line is, I've had a couple of people say, well, we don't sign pledges. And I said, well, just read this one, because it's different than a lot of pledges. And they've read it and they go, oh, well, I'll sign that one. So sometimes because it's pretty generic, it's not committing them to a specific action, but it's more general in nature. I think there's, if they say they don't sign pledges, just ask them to read it. And sometimes you'll get a different response. I think I have three different ones that are up now on the site that all gave me that as the first response. And they're some of the ones that are now talking about climate change in their stump speeches.
Libby's got her hand up.
Go ahead, Libby.
I have a question that maybe has a simple answer, but my congresswoman is Jackie Spear, and she's very savvy and totally believes in the climate crisis and action. And so before she even signed one of those when we did this before, like 2 years ago, and she signed the thing, and not only did she sign it, she turned in like 3 or 4 other pages that just really laid out her philosophy and all of that. So I guess I'm feeling a little intimidated about going back to her again, because she's so busy. And to get her to do that the first time, I had to go through her, whatever you call him, the guy who represents her and greets everybody. He sort of, I kept going back to him until he finished that and got her to sign it and send in those papers. So I don't know if anybody else, there weren't too many people who did sign that first time around, as I recall, before the last elections. And I suppose we can't just use her name saying she's already a believer.
That was actually a survey, and this is a pledge. So I think there's a difference in what those two things we're asking. So maybe you approach it that way. That hey, you answered our survey, last time. Will you please sign this pledge this time?
Right, or to say we know that you really are on board with this. Would you be willing to take a moment to just sign this off on this pledge, and then it'll be on our website showing that you signed on to this.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's going to be a generic problem across other congressional districts, because we didn't get a great response last time because it was a survey. It was a little more complicated, a bit more work for people to do. And you may just be able to get this done at a candidate forum, be able to give it to a staff person at this candidate forum, and she would, take it with them if she's that supportive. It may be a little easier. You may not have to have a one-on-one meeting. Mm-hmm. Any more questions or comments?
I'm very excited. I think there are a lot of groups out there who are also looking at climate, and I think this is a way of helping to bring this discussion to the fore in these elections, and I'm very excited.
And I'll just say one thing to piggyback on what Leslie just said is that we do have a lot of partnership organizations, and there might be other organizations within your own community that would be great organizations to partner with to help promote this project, to help participate in the project. So please, if you know any other groups or have connections to other groups, or if you're part of a neighborhood association or a community group, or something like that, book club, engage other people to participate in this project. And we're really trying to sort of by word of mouth spread this project nationwide, and so it's really important that we all sort of cast a big net and tap into our networks to really help bring climate change to the forefront of this election and the discussions around this election.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, Hazel, Jen, and Margot for taking us through this and working out all the kinks in this process. So now it's in great shape. We hope you'll all participate. If anybody has questions, just email info@eldersclimateaction.org. If you run into problems or have questions, we will. As time goes on, probably after June, we'll start having maybe monthly calls just to support people in this project, to answer questions, talk about issues that have come up, and we'll do this all the way through till November. So we have time. We have a lot of opportunity. We have some time, and so, this 100% of the House is up for re-election and 1/3 of the Senate. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of candidates, and it's a great opportunity. They're not just going to hear from us about climate change, but they are going to hear from us about being elders and being concerned. So I thank you all very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you too, and thank you to the people who did that amazing website and planned it all out. It was a big job.
Thank you.